I'm Marcus Benjamin bringing you the Benjamin Report, where Miami suffers their second loss of the year to the North Carolina Tar Heels, 41-31. Now, this was a game where Miami led at halftime. They were up by 3 points. It was 17-14. And as a Hurricane fan, you felt good about the Hurricanes coming off of that devastating loss to Georgia Tech. You felt like they had a legitimate shot to win this game. But then 24 straight points later, you feel like maybe this is the same old Hurricanes that you've seen for the past couple of years. And they just could not recover in that second half. Now, for me, Miami just couldn't keep up with the tempo of North Carolina defensively. This is something that kind of gave them trouble throughout the game. They rushed to the line, got plays off, and they hit you with a variety of different looks offensively. And Drake May, he is good as advertised. I mean, he didn't have a great percentage completing the football, but he did run when he needed to and finished the game with 4 touchdowns. And Tez Walker, who just became eligible by the NCAA, also as good as advertised, as he scored 3 touchdowns against the Hurricanes. Now, Miami was able to get some pressure on Drake May, putting him on the ground and also forcing a fumble. Ruben Bain forced a fumble in this one, but it wasn't enough. Now, going into this game, you kind of always thought that Miami would have to outscore North Carolina, and they just couldn't keep up in that second half, and mainly because of turnovers. 2 critical turnovers in this game kind of turned the tide for the Tar Heels. The first was a bad snap by your usually reliable center in Matt Lee. And Tyler Van Dyke kind of took responsibility for it in the press conference, putting the blame on himself that he's just got to be better at execution and just got to handle the football. And then the immediate drive following that, he throws an interception. And he said he was trying to throw over the defender, Cedric Gray, and just couldn't get it over him. But essentially, those were the 2 turnovers that decided this game because it was a 2-score ending. Now, Miami made it competitive towards the end with some late touchdowns, but North Carolina clearly took their foot off the gas and was just kind of playing the clock game to run out the clock. So this score, even though it was a 10-point game, I don't think it was quite indicative of how it all turned out for the Miami Hurricanes. What was clear, though, in the press conference was that Tyler Van Dyke is not fully healthy. I think the injury before the season, where we talked about an injured thumb, he actually tore 3 ligaments in his hand, and that's a pretty significant injury for a quarterback, obviously. So he was very transparent in the press conference, and we as journalists, we appreciate that because Mario Cristobal likes to keep a very tightly run ship when it comes to injuries and information about injuries. So Tyler Van Dyke gave us that nugget, and it says a lot about him as far as him playing through the injury and going 4-0 with the injury. So a lot of questions kind of come up for me as, wow, so are those 4 opponents not as good as we thought? I mean, well, obviously 3 of them, but Texas A&M in particular, are they not as good as we thought? Because we kind of hang that win on our hat as one of the big wins for Miami. So he seemed to aggravate this injury in this game. So the quarterback situation is not at a level where you feel comfortable, because it's just not at a level where you can compete with the likes of a Drake May, who's obviously on his way to the NFL at some point. So maybe not his fault with the injury, but you're just not getting enough from your quarterback to win a big-time game like this. North Carolina proved to me that they are a big-time football team, and they could possibly win the ACC over a Florida State team. But the season's not over for Miami. I think they could still bounce back in this one, or this season, with a win against Clemson. Clemson has now become a huge game for the Hurricanes to win. And I think it's the perfect game, actually, for Miami to bounce back with, because you want to go right back on the field and prove that you are better than what they've shown in these last two games. So obviously a disappointing result for Miami, but they get to right their wrongs next week against a pretty decent Clemson team. It's not the Clemson of old, but it is still Clemson, and Miami is going to try their best to right their wrongs in that game against Clemson. I would say the other takeaway for me is that this team really doesn't seem like they have an identity on either side of the ball. We kind of thought, okay, it's the running game. Okay, maybe it's the downfield passing game. Or maybe it's stopping the run. And you didn't see any of that in a big-time game tonight. You didn't see them stop the run, because the North Carolina running back ran for 200 yards tonight. You didn't see that stopping the pass, because there were several big plays, including a 56-yard touchdown thrown by Drake May in this game. Drake May threw for 4 touchdowns in this one. And just, they were constantly beat downfield. So you don't think that's their identity. They didn't really rush for a ton of yards in this one. Sometimes Henry Parrish had his moments here and there, but he didn't really break out for a significant amount of yards. So I feel like this is a team struggling with its identity and who they are. I think they're still trying to find themselves, and they'll continue to try to find themselves against Clemson next week. I think if Miami had beaten Georgia Tech, if Cristobal had decided to take a knee, then this loss would probably not feel as bad. But in the locker room, you could tell, especially from the likes of Ruben Bain and Tyler Van Dyke, that this one hurts. This one hurts really bad. But Tyler Van Dyke did say that this team is special, and this team is different from teams that he has been on in the past with this Miami program. Because what we've seen with this Miami program after losses is that they just continue on a downward spiral. And I think the next game is going to be really critical to the rest of the season. Now, I do think this team still goes bowling. I do think this team is much better than last year. You can't get much worse than a 5-7 season. But this next game against Clemson is going to be a real test of who they are and who they will be for the rest of the season. That's going to wrap it up here from Kenan Stadium here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. That is the Benjamin Report, and until next time.